I'm a very introspective person. I look at what I do day to day, and I do not become complacent with it. I do not become smug with it. I do not become comfortable with it. I'm very self-critical of our food, our service, every aspect of what we do. Not openly to each and every individual, but I'll file something away and I'll say, we've got to do it like this, we've got to do it like that. And then I look at other folks that have been in creative fields that find ways to move it forward. And Miles Davis is an example, or Bob Dylan, or Charlie Parker, artists that never really did something the same way twice. And Miles Davis might have played My Funny Valentine one way, and a week later played it and picked up the tempo, and a week later played it again and turned it from a 7-minute flowing composition into an 18-minute composition. And a year later he might have played My Funny Valentine and put a mute on his horn. And a year later he might have played it again and de-emphasized his own instrument and emphasized the alto saxophone or something along those lines. And Bob Dylan's the same, and other painters and different artists work that way. The easy part is the technique, whether that's on the culinary side or the service side, or learning about wines and eventually about food and wine pairing and all of that sort of thing, or learning how to answer phones. But if you've got the attitude and the mindset, if you've got genuine exuberance and enthusiasm, and as I say, a sincerity of effort and kind of an innocence, I don't need 60 people like that. I need 8 people like that in my whole organization, and it becomes infectious, and it just begins to permeate and take over. I could interview somebody to be a cook or a chef and never once ask them to pick up a knife and cut a piece of fish, or saute a rack of lamb and cook it perfectly and season it and plate it and make it look attractive. And I could literally spend 10 minutes with them and ask them to do 2 or 3 things for me, and I could tell you what kind of chef and ultimately what kind of leader they might be. I would say, why don't you start by sweeping and then mopping that area of the kitchen, and then why don't you follow me, we'll go back to the pot sink, and I'd like to see you just wash a few of these pots and pans and then put them away. And then why don't you come over here and tell me what you think about life, and what are your 3 favorite books. And that whole process would take 10 minutes, and I can tell you whether I'd ever hire them or not. Never need to see a resume, never need to, in fact, people say, where do I send my resume? I say, I don't even need a resume. Write me a 1-page essay and tell me what the meaning of life is according to you. And so this is kind of how we approach things. When one comes here, one is truly trained to be a leader. We are very proud when someone has spent 2 years or 5 years or 10 years and they go on and they do their own thing. In fact, when we hire people during the interview process and I say, where do you want to be in 3 years or 5 years? And if the respondent replies, I'd love to be your sous chef in 5 years, I don't hire the person. I would rather have the person say to me, chef, in 3 years' time, I see myself running my own restaurant. In 5 years' time, I see myself as the executive chef of some major hotel in New York City, or whatever the case may be. The trade-off is this. You end up with hugely ambitious people that are not intimidated by the hours and by the intensity of the work. In fact, I don't know that I've read a review, and I'm saying this sarcastically, but of a Chicago restaurant in the last 3 years where by the 3rd sentence it didn't read, and he or she used to work at Charlie Trotter's. And we're proud of that. It's sort of like we're graduating people to go onward and upward. And ultimately, you have to be your own toughest leader. You have to be a leader at all times. You have to think, well, Chef Trotter may have asked me to do this, and I know he has an expectation for me to be at this kind of level. But I'm going to exceed that because my own expectation for myself is even beyond that. So that's kind of the culture that is created here. And so if we're a profitable enterprise, and if we can first and foremost take care of our clients, and secondarily take care of our team members, then we're in a position to affect some good from a social standpoint. And that can happen in a lot of different ways. It's a 3-part thing that we're trying to do. It's make a aesthetic contribution, make a cultural contribution, and make a social contribution. But don't get me wrong. First and foremost, I'm a capitalist. I'm a staunch libertarian. I'm a believer in making money, and we can't do any of these things unless we run a profitable enterprise where we've got the money to do these things. If we didn't do these things, it would merely be a job. I mean, we have to make a difference. Otherwise, there's no point.